She was the most efficient serial killer of the Middle Ages, a torturer, an arsonist, a genocidal force. If you had lived in the year 945 AD and seen her face illuminated by the flames of a burning city, you would have thought the devil himself had descended to earth in the form of a woman. We are talking about a widow who engineered 4 perfect acts of revenge. We are talking about men buried alive, about bathhouses turned into human ovens, and about the cruelest military strategy ever recorded in history, the use of incendiary birds. But here lies the paradox. If you walk into a church in Moscow or Kiev today, you will see people praying to this very same woman. How does a monster become an angel? You have to see the end of this story to believe it. Welcome to Curioholics. Today, the full story of Olga of Kyiv. Chapter 1. Viking Blood. To understand Olga's fury, we must first understand her blood. Do not picture refined European nobility sipping wine from crystal glasses. This is the 10th century. The Kievan Rus is not Russia as we know it today. It is a warrior state forged by steel and the slave trade. Its rulers were not ordinary Slavs. They were Varangians, Swedish Vikings who had traveled down the eastern rivers in search of gold and glory. Olga was no fairy tale princess. Her original name was Helga. She was a woman of the north, pragmatic, hardened, and pagan. Her husband, Prince Igor, was the son of Rurik, the legendary founder of the dynasty. And like any true Viking, Igor had a fatal flaw: unrestrained greed. Every winter he carried out what they called poliudi, a circuit to collect tribute from the subjugated tribes. It was not a diplomatic visit, it was legalized plunder. Furs, wax, honey, and if you did not have enough, they took your children as slaves. But one winter, Igor's greed went too far. He decided that the tribute from the Drevlians was not enough. He broke the unwritten contract. He turned his horse around and went back to collect a second time. Chapter 2. The Fatal Mistake. The Drevlians, hardened people of the forest, decided they had had enough. Prince Mal, their leader, spoke a line that would pass into history. If the wolf comes to steal from the sheep too many times, the wolf dies. Their execution was creative and brutal, worthy of a horror film. They captured Igor with only a few men. They bent 2 flexible birch trees down to the ground. They tied each of Igor's legs to a tree and released the branches. The king's body was violently torn in half. It was a bloody message to Kiev. But the Drevlians made a fatal miscalculation. They thought Kiev, now ruled by a widow with a small child, would be weak. They thought a Viking woman would sit down and weep. They did not know who Olga was, and soon they would wish they had never met her. Chapter 3. The First Revenge, the Burial. Imagine the audacity. Shortly after having her husband torn in half, Prince Mal sent Olga a marriage proposal. "Marry our prince," said the 20 envoys who arrived by boat along the Dnieper River. "Let us unite our realms. Your husband was a ravenous wolf, but our princes are good men." Olga received them with terrifying calm. She did not weep. She did not scream. "Your proposal pleases me," she lied with a cold smile. "But I wish to honor you before my people. Return to your ship. Tomorrow, my men will carry you on their shoulders inside the boat, all the way to my palace, so that your feet will not touch the ground, like true kings." The envoys, swollen with pride, accepted. The next morning, the soldiers of Kiev lifted the heavy boat with all 20 dignitaries still inside. They carried it into the palace courtyard. The envoys waved to the crowd, smiling, believing themselves untouchable. But then, the ground vanished. Olga had ordered can enormous picto be dug during the night. The boat crashed to the bottom with the thunder of splintering wood and cracking bones. Olga stepped to the edge. The sunlight carved her figure into a black silhouette. "Is this honor to your liking?" she asked softly. As they begged for mercy from the depths of the pit, she gave a single signal. The earth began to fall. They were buried alive, boat and all. The Chronicles say Olga stood there watching until the final scream was swallowed by the soil. But Olga was only just getting started. Chapter 4, The Second Vengeance, The Fire. Olga knew that no one in Drevlian territory yet knew the fate of the first envoys, so she sent a message to Prince Mal. "If you truly want me to come to you, send me your most distinguished men. In the nobles, the generals, the governors, only if I see the elite of your people escorting me will I agree to go." And Mal, blinded by his ambition to control Kiev, sent the finest members. When they arrived, filthy from the journey, Olga played the role of the perfect hostess. "You must be exhausted," she told them in a gentle voice. "Please, the bathhouse is ready. Wash yourselves, relax, then we will hold a royal banquet." The nobles entered. They undressed, steam filled the wooden chamber. They felt safe. Suddenly, the door slammed shut from the outside. The heavy lock dropped into place. They heard the sound of boards being nailed, hammer blows sealing the windows. Then, the smell of smoke. Olga did not send soldiers to fight. She simply ordered the building to be set on fire from all four corners. She burned the entire ruling elite of her enemies alive in a single afternoon. Any other leader would have stopped there. The enemy leadership was gone. A favorable peace could have been negotiated. But Olga did not want to win a political war. She wanted to wipe out a people. Chapter 5. The Third Revenge. The Red Banquet. With the elite eliminated, Olga personally traveled to Drevlian lands with a small army. She told them, "I come to you, but before the wedding, let me mourn my husband. Allow me to hold a funeral feast in his honor here where he died." The Drevlians, confused but respectful of the pagan Trisna tradition, agreed. They sat down to drink with Olga's soldiers. She served liters upon liters of strong mead. She waited, patient as a spider in her web. She waited for laughter to turn into slurred speech, for the warriors to collapse over the tables, defenseless, drunk on trust. And at her signal, the massacre began. Olga's soldiers drew their swords. It was not a battle. It was a mass execution. The Chronicle says 5,000 Drevlians were slaughtered that night. The ground was soaked in blood. 5,000 dead. Blood for blood. It seemed like the end, but the survivors took refuge in their capital, Iskorostan. And Olga had one more idea. An idea so cruel, it would change the history of warfare. Chapter 6. The Revenge of the Birds. The siege of Iskorostan lasted a full year. In the 10th century, besieging a city was dirty, slow work. It meant waiting for the people inside to die of hunger or disease. It meant digging tunnels or launching stones. But Olga was growing bored, and Olga wanted fire. Feigning mercy, she sent a message. Why choose to starve? Your princes are dead. I have already avenged my husband. I only want a symbolic tribute so I can return home. Give me 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from every household. Nothing more. The inhabitants laughed in relief. Birds? That was a gift. They handed over the cages, believing the war was over. That night, Olga distributed the birds among her soldiers. To each bird's leg, they tied a piece of cloth soaked in sulfur and set it alight. They released the birds. And what do birds do when you set them free? They return to their nests. They flew back to the rooftops, to the eaves of houses, to the barns filled with dry straw inside the walled city. Within minutes, there was not one fire. There were thousands at once. The entire city became a giant torch. There was not enough water to extinguish a sky raining fire down upon them. People ran from the flames straight into the swords of Olga's army waiting outside. Iskarostan was wiped off the map. Those who did not die were turned into slaves. Chapter 7. The Masterstroke in Constantinople. After so much death, you might think her story ends in blood. But Olga was more than a killer. She was a brilliant politician. Years later, she traveled to Constantinople, the richest city in the world, to visit Emperor Constantine VII. When the emperor saw her, beautiful, powerful, and intelligent, he was fascinated. The Chronicles say he proposed marriage. He wanted to unite the barbarian strength of the Rus with the power of Byzantium. Olga knew that such a marriage would cost her her power. She would become only the emperor's wife, so she devised a plan. "I am a pagan," she told him. "If you want me to be yours, you must first baptize me, and I want you to be my godfather, so that it will be a true royal honor." Blinded by desire, the emperor agreed. A magnificent ceremony was held. Olga was baptized with the name Helena. Just after the ceremony, when the emperor proposed marriage again, Olga smiled. The same smile she had before burying the envoys. "I cannot marry you," she said. "Church law forbids a godfather from marrying his spiritual daughter. It would be a terrible sin, wouldn't it?" The emperor froze. He had been outmaneuvered in his own palace by his own laws. "You have defeated me, Olga," he admitted. Olga returned to Kiev, not as a submissive bride, but as an independent Christian ruler, respected by the most powerful empire in the world. Final chapter. The Saint. Her grandson, Vladimir the Great, would finish the work she began, converting the entire nation to Christianity. That is why she is Saint Olga. She is a saint equal to the apostles, a title granted to very few. Olga of Kyiv is the perfect reminder that history is never simply black or white. She was a devoted mother and a ruthless genocidal ruler. She was a Christian saint and a bloodthirsty Viking. The next time you see an icon of St. Olga in a church, look closely into her eyes. You might see the mercy of a saint, or you might see the reflection of a city burning because of a flock of birds. If this story left you chilled, subscribe to Curioholics and tell me in the comments, was it justice or madness? See you in the next darkness. Until then, stay curious.